And welcome. As Susan said, it's a beautiful day here today. We're thankful that you're here. I see some familiar faces out there, so thanks for the coming back and your vote of confidence in us. As Susan said, I have been providing low vision rehabilitation services since I was a student, so it's over 30 years now that I've been doing this. What I want to touch on is I'm going to kind of go through a low vision optometric exam. Discuss with you how it might be different, how it definitely is different from your routine eye exam. So you know what to expect whether you come to Vision Forward or let's say you make an appointment with another practitioner to know that you're getting all the services that you should be getting. So one of the first things we do as part of a low vision assessment is go through your current eye health history. Before you even come in, you will be contacted by an administrative assistant and they'll get information from you and say, hey, who's your current doctor? That doctor will send us a report of your most recent eye exam, because before you can come to us, what we're not going to do is we're not going to dilate your eyes. We're not going to take a look at the health in the back of your eye. That all has to be done before you come in to see us at Vision Forward. So when you come in, we're going to review those eye health history. It's your opportunity to ask questions about, what's my prognosis? Is my vision going to get worse? Is this where it's going to stay? Are there any new treatment options out there for me? Because as you all well know, when you're in the ophthalmologist's office or your eye doctor's office, they're busy. You're sitting in that waiting room and there's tons of people in the waiting room. You get in to see the eye doctor, the technician does some tests, the eye doctor comes in and it's out and you're kind of like, wait, I didn't get to ask my questions. So we are more than happy to do our best to answer any questions, take the time to answer any questions that you might have relating to your eye and your eye condition. We also want to find out what's your experience with magnification. Have you been to Walmart and picked up a magnifier at Walmart or Science and Surplus? Do you know how to use it? Okay. Have you had somebody, hey, listen, my aunt had this great magnifier. You can have it now. What's your experience with magnification and how can we take what you currently have and help you get the most out of it? After we go through your health history and make sure that you've got all your questions answered, then we're going to establish goals. This is a really big part of what we do. In fact, when the administrative assistant schedules you for your appointment, one of the things that she's going to ask you to do is put together a wish list. We want to know when you come in what it is you want to be able to see better. When you went to your eye doctor and had your routine eye exam to check the health of your eye, they already determined the best eyeglass prescription for you, okay? People come into me all the time and say, I'm not sure why I'm having this refraction because I just had that done at my eye doctor. That's your prescription for glasses for pouring a cup of coffee, for seeing the food on your plate, for walking to the bathroom in the middle of the night. That's not your prescription for reading the small print. So in order for us to kind of personalize our time together, we want to know specifically what it is you want to be able to see better. Are you going to be sewing? Are you going to be making lures? You're a fisher person and you want to be able to make those lures. Do you want to be able to read the stock market quotes? You want to be able to see things on your computer screen better. People come in and will say, I just want to read. And I say, that's not good enough, I need to know more. Read what? Because the magnifier that you're going to use to read the little ticker on the TV screen is going to be different than the magnifier you're going to use to read a recipe in the kitchen. And the magnifier that might be the best magnifier to read a recipe in the kitchen, that might not be the best tool to use to sit back and just read War and Peace. Okay? It's all reading, but because it's different reading in different environments, the magnifiers may be different. I want to see a show of hands of how many people in this room have one pair of shoes. Okay? Right? I don't believe you. You got a pair of boots. You got a pair of slippers. You got your dress shoes. You got all those shoes. They cover your feet. That's their job. Magnifiers work the same way, though. If you're willing to have 4 or 5 different pairs of shoes, you should be willing to have at least 4 or 5 different magnifiers because it depends upon the job that you want to do, okay? So that list is vitally important. I don't want to spend a lot of your time looking for a magnifier to thread a needle if you're not going to thread a needle. So put that list together. So after we go through that list of goals, what it is you want to be able to see better. You're doing it for me, thank you.
Yeah.
She's watching me, thank you. It's a team effort here, it truly is. We are going to assess your acuity. So acuity is simply what's the smallest line of letters you can read on the eye chart across the room and the eye chart for reading. That's what acuity is. There are different charts. The charts that we use as part of a low vision assessment are different from the charts that you have when you go to see your eye doctor. My biggest letter on my eye chart is 21,000. Every standard eye chart in a traditional eye exam, the biggest letter they have is 2,400. So I right off the bat, have the ability to assess a broader range of acuity. So down and to the left on the picture that you see up there, that's the typical scenario of checking acuity in the eye doctor's office. They turn the lights off in the room, they put the letter up on the screen, and they ask you to read it. What's wrong with this picture? How often are you going to walk into the grocery store at Pick and Save and say, you know, it's too bright in here, can you turn the lights off for me? Real world. I specifically leave all the lights on in my exam room when I check your vision because that's how it's going to be in the real world. You're not going to have the opportunity to necessarily change the environment. Or, you know, you're coming from a bright, sunny day and you're going to walk into a dark restaurant. How are we going to help you with that transition? Those are all the kind of things that we're going to look at. Down and to the right, you'll see my eye charts for reading the near print. I have a whole lot more letters on that chart than, again, the traditional eye chart. The down and to the right, the chart to the right, is what we call continuous text. Again, when I check your vision to see what's the smallest line you can read, how many of you are going to go home and read 5 letters and be done? It's a whole lot different to read a paragraph. Okay? Because now you've got long words and short words. You got to be able to get from the end of one sentence to the beginning of the next sentence and not lose your place. And I want to see how you're doing that right now with whatever tool you have with you. And from there, that's kind of our baseline. That's where we pick up and figure out the tool or the technique or the device that's going to enhance your vision. Oh, this one. This is the thing we get the most questions about, the refraction. When the administrative assistant, Jackie or Eli, set up your appointment, they'll tell you kind of what things you're going to go through, and they say, oh, no, I don't need that refraction. I just had that done. My eye doctor just did that for me. I don't need to have that done. Yes, but again, they're checking for the glasses for your just kind of your general purpose bifocal to move from the kitchen to the bedroom, to pour a cup of coffee. It's not the prescription for seeing the small print. That eyeglass prescription that you walk in with, we often find that to be your best general purpose bifocal, but we may need to tweak it or fine tune it when we want to add additional magnification over the top. So on the left, okay, that you all recognize that, right? That big mask that you sit behind, that's called a phoropter. That's the tool that we use. So little fun fact, on the right is this is old school. Those lenses on the right, that goes way back before they ever had a phoropter. That's how they would check your eyes, by popping lenses in and out of that crazy frame. But the nice thing about that old school way of doing it is when you're behind the mask, you don't have the ability to turn your head to the side a little bit, turn your eye to the side a little bit, raise your chin, lower your chin, because you're plastered behind that mask. As a lot of you well know, that being able to turn your eye to the left or to the right, or turn your head to the left or the right, makes a huge difference in how you see things. I want the real world. I want it to be functional. So I'm going to put that clunky old heavy trowel frame on your face and pop those lenses in and out, because that allows it to be more real world. Okay? Function. It's all about function. The other thing, sometimes though, I won't use that clunky frame. Sometimes we luck out and there's a kind of like, it's like a clothespin holder that I can put the lenses in that I can attach right over the top of your glasses. So sometimes I'll be able to use that depending upon how much I might need to adjust the prescription. So if you come and see me and you don't get that trowel frame, you're not losing out. I'm still checking it. I'm just doing it in a slightly different way. So after we check foundation, we got to have the best possible prescription. The rule of thumb is focus first. And that's what your day-to-day eyeglasses do. They focus the light onto the retina. They focus it to a pinpoint focus right on the macula. What's wrong with this picture again? If you have macular degeneration, when the light hits that spot of your retina, nothing happens because that part of your retina is not working well. Okay? If you have retinitis pigmentosa, where your peripheral vision is affected, the same type of a thing. Depending upon where we're focusing that light with your general day-to-day prescription, it may or may not help. So after we get the foundation, we got the best prescription. To that, we add magnification. We make it bigger. So again, the rule of thumb is focus first, then enlarge. That's what the magnification is designed to do. Make it bigger, so instead of it coming to a pinpoint focus right on the macula, which might not be working so well, we can put it out onto the peripheral retina. We can put it out onto the rods that are working better, okay? So in this slide that you're looking at out there are various magnifiers. Again, up until this point, every time I said the word magnifier, I kind of know what you all were thinking. Sherlock Holmes, right? A circle with a handle on it. That's just one example of a magnifier. And when you get to talk with I know Corey and Luke are going to be focusing on the smartphone, but there are so many different, and Lauren too will talk with you about all the different designs of magnifiers. Let's go back to that shoe analogy, okay? Different jobs, different tools. Depending upon what you want to do, we're going to kind of fine-tune the best tool to help you see what you want to see. So on the picture to the left, those are examples of distance magnifiers. Those are telescopes. Telescopes are designed to help you see detail across the room. Telescopes are designed to help you see the faces of your grandkids when they're out there playing soccer. Telescopes are designed to help you read the ticker when you're watching the news, okay? Every tool or device that we show you is going to have advantages and disadvantages. The nice thing about a telescope is it lets you see that small detail across the room. But it's like looking through a paper towel tube, okay? So if you're looking at that TV screen across the room, you're going to see the face of the person who's talking, but you're not going to be able to see the whole screen at once. If you're taking it with you to the Bucks game or the Brewers game, you're going to be able to see who's throwing the free throw, but you're not going to be able to see the entire court at once. That's the disadvantage, the small field of view. It magnifies things, it lets you see more detail, but you couldn't walk around looking through it, okay? Because you'd be tripping and bumping into things because it minimizes your peripheral vision. There are handheld, that's probably the most popular type of telescope, one that you can wear around your neck or carry in your pocket. There's also spectacle mounted, which are tools that are kind of, they either sit on top of your eyeglass frame, so they're just kind of hanging out there waiting for you to use. If there's something in the distance you want to see better, you drop your chin, look through the telescope. That's called a bioptic telescope. There's also full diameter, which are ones that, again, if you were going to sit and watch TV, you don't want to have to sit with your chin down. You put these on kind of like sports glasses or a full diameter telescope just to be able to kind of sit, relax, and watch TV. But the minute you want to get up and walk around, they got to come off. Okay? A bioptic is designed to be something that you could theoretically wear when you're walking around, but they're kind of heavy. Okay? The other downside to a lot of these things, and if any of you have magnifiers, you know this, is the cost. A bioptic telescope mounted into a pair of glasses is going to cost you a couple $1,000s. Okay? So that's the disadvantage. The other big disadvantage is, and this is one of those legislative things, if any of you are so inclined to get involved legislatively, none of the devices are paid for by insurance. Okay? So your time to work with me or Lauren, that's covered by insurance, but the devices that we may recommend are not. So that's kind of all out of pocket. So that's another disadvantage. Okay? Off to the right, what you see there are examples of microscopes. So microscopes are, it's kind of like taking the power of that handheld Sherlock Holmes magnifier and putting it into a pair of glasses. The obvious nice thing about having the magnification in your glasses is hands are free. If you've ever tried to read a newspaper while you're holding the newspaper in one hand, The magnifier, on the other hand, you know how hard it is to coordinate all that stuff. Forget about balancing the checkbook that way. Magnifier in one hand, you're kind of holding it down, you're trying to write, stop the checkbook from moving. That's really hard to do. So the huge advantage to having all of the magnification in a pair of glasses is it frees your hands up. But as I mentioned earlier, everything we can show you will have advantages and disadvantages. The disadvantage to a microscope eyeglass lens is what you're reading has to be brought closer to your nose. So in the example of the checkbook, okay, if it's laying flat on the table, you're going to have those microscope reading glasses on. You won't have to hold a magnifier, but you will have to get closer to it to be able to see it. Or use a copy stand, like a sheet music stand. Prop it up, bring it closer to you so you don't get a sore neck and a sore back. If the idea of holding something really, really close is not appealing to you, especially if you're a big book reader, your next option would be, two options you have would be the handheld magnifier. Nice thing about the handheld magnifier is you get to hold it farther away. Obvious disadvantage is how are you going to turn the page of the newspaper if you're holding the newspaper in one hand and the magnifier in the other. The other disadvantage to holding it out there is that you get the smaller field of view. So with the microscope advantage, free hands, but holding it closer. So you have to kind of, going back to what we said earlier about the multiple pair of shoes, the multiple magnifiers, what's the job that you want to do? So the other option besides handheld and spectacle would be digital or electronic magnification. The nice thing about electronic magnification, like a video magnifier, is it's up on the screen. Now you get to kind of sit back. You don't have to get up real close to it. The other nice thing about electronic or digital magnification is you can adjust it. You can adjust the color. You can adjust the contrast. So if people will often tell me, my vision fluctuates. It's not the same every day. Some days I have good vision days, other days it's not so good. So on a good vision day, you can tone that magnification down on a video screen, see more of the column at once. On a bad vision day, bump it up a little bit, okay? If it's a kind of a cloudy, dark, overcast day, you can increase the brightness and the contrast on your video magnifier. If it's sometimes too much light makes it hard though too because there's a lot of glare on the screen. So the nice thing about any kind of electronic or digital magnification is the ability to control the brightness and the contrast and the size. I have patients will ask me, say, well, doc, this handheld magnifier you just gave me is working great right now, but what am I going to do if my vision changes? Am I going to have to buy a whole nother magnifier? Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality of the handheld magnifier. So as much as there's a sticker shock associated with the electronic or digital magnification, in the long run, it might be a better option for you because, heaven forbid your vision should change, that electronic magnifier can just kind of change right with you and adjust with you, whereas the handheld magnifier, once it's obsolete, if it's not working for you anymore, now you're looking at investing in another one. And so my piece of the puzzle at Vision Forward is, let's make sure you got the best possible prescription, because that's the foundation, and then to assess how much magnification is it going to take, both in the distance and up close, to help you see the things that you want to see. Once we determine that number, the magnification number, then I hand you over to Lauren, and she kind of picks up where we left off, and I tell my patients, this is when the fun starts, because this is where you get to get your hands on all of these things we just discussed and try them out, okay? So let's say I determine that you need a +8 lens. That's the power, that's the number. The magic number is an 8. Well, that 8 is available in eyeglasses. The 8 is available in a handheld magnifier. It's available in a handheld magnifier with a light. It's available in a stand magnifier. That's kind of like a paperweight. A stand magnifier with a light. It's also available electronically or digitally. So you got all those different options to try out, and that's what you do when you're working with Lauren.
Okay. I know some people came a little late. If you want to take this time, you can have a seat. Do you want to sit down? Okay. All right. So my name is Lauren, like Dr. Hinson said. And I've been working with Dr. Hinson for as long as I've been at Vision Forward, which is over 15 years. I'm an occupational therapist. I'm also a CLVT, which means I'm a certified low vision therapist. When you hear the term occupational therapist, what that means, the term occupation stands for activities, so activities of daily living. And why that's a good fit for working with our low vision clients is because we are treating, we're not treating the eye disease, we're treating the areas that you're struggling doing. So any activity that you are having difficulties with, we can address in low vision services while you're working with the occupational therapist. Okay, so I feel like my main role is taking Dr. Hinson's clinical findings and putting the function into them. Because like Dr. Hinson was saying, you know, when you see her, you're going to look at eye charts. And eye charts are designed to be as easy to read as possible from the standpoint that they have good contrast, bright white background, really dark writing. They are in a good font. There is spacing between them. The real world doesn't look that way. So the slide that I have up now, it shows people just doing normal everyday things. We've got somebody in the grocery store where, as you all know, down the aisles, there's all kinds of items. Sometimes it could be very hard to find what you want and read what you need to see. Somebody looking at an over-the-counter menu, those can certainly be hard to read. They don't look like eye charts. Newspaper can be very hard to read. Newspaper has not very great contrast. The background tends to be grayish. The writing, the text isn't super dark. There's different colors. And then also hobbies that people do. I've got somebody, I don't know if that's knitting or crocheting or I don't know what that is. I'm not okay. So, but I'm working with somebody right now who has a black sewing machine and they're working with like black threads and things like that. So, yeah, and they know it's hard. You know, they already know that it's hard to do and that they could make it easier by changing the contrast. But at the same time, what they want to do is they want this black in this quilt that they're making. So that's what we're working with. Technology is another thing. I'm sure a lot of you are technology users of some sort. Some of the reading material is gray, you know, hard to read. Some of it's bold and it might be a little easier. But you're getting all types of color combinations in technology as well, and different font styles. So as the occupational therapist, we're treating the whole person, not just vision loss. And so what that means is there are people who have, everybody's unique, everybody's different. So some people that we see with, they might just want to be able to read the newspaper. Other people want to get outside and do more walking, hiking, going to church, seeing things. Maybe people go out to eat more. Sometimes people are younger. They might have a family that they have to take care of, or they're working. Sometimes people have other disabilities, so there might be some short-term memory loss. Maybe they have some tremors in their hand, or maybe they have some endurance issues, or they have some shoulder impairments that affects their range of motion and their ability to hold, a magnifier. So we take a look at the entire person when we meet them. So Dr. Hinson, when you meet with Dr. Hinson, she touches on the goals. She wants you to be specific. When you work with the occupational therapist, we're going to have you be a little bit more specific and detailed. We're going to spend a little bit more time refining the goals. I listed here 4 important things that we have to talk about when we create goals. The first one is that they are client-centered. They're not my goals. And if you come to visit me with a loved one or a friend, they're not their goals either. They have to really be your goals, because otherwise there's not going to be the motivation to do them. So we really want to figure out what is important to the person who my client is versus maybe somebody else's goals that's with them. The goals have to be realistic. I mean, I would love if everybody could drive, that wants to drive. But legally, that's just not the case. So the goals have to be realistic. There are some people who can read with devices, but it might be so hard and time consuming that the realistic avenue might be more doing auditory methods. So we have to factor all this in when we come up with goals. Dr. Hinson already said the goals have to be specific, and she gave the shoe example, which I think is a great example. Different tools for different tasks. It would be fantastic if there would be one tool that does everything. Unfortunately, that's just not the case. When we're done talking about goals, I always ask my clients, what's the most important thing for you to work on first? Because I want you to be satisfied with your treatment. And if we're working on things that really aren't that important to you, or you'd rather be spending this time working on something else, it's really not helping anybody. So I want you to tell me what's the most important thing for you. Most of the people come to Vision Forward because of reading. I think that's typically what gets people in the door. But we do have a list of everyday activities that we go over because we want our clients to think about all the other things that they are struggling with on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be anything big. If you have a hard time plugging something into the wall, well, that's a goal. And it can be something very simple that we can, kind of get you to do pretty quickly. So it doesn't have to be anything astronomical. It can be something.
Another big one, thermostat. Seeing that thermostat on the wall.
I was just doing it.
The seasons?
Doing it yesterday at a home visit. So thermostats is another big one. So. Okay. The low vision process, when you work with the occupational therapist, it's not usually, very, very rarely, is it a one-time visit with the occupational therapist. And that's because, there's many reasons for this, but in order for us to do best practices, best services, we need to work with you for a few times, most likely. We do clinical visits, but we also do home visits because, there's no question that the best work that I do with my clients is in their natural environment. Because obviously that's where you're going to be doing a lot of these things, so it makes sense to work right then and there. The other thing is we do, if you're in the clinic, I feel like there's a lot of talking and hoping that it carries over into the home, where if we can just work directly in the home, we can just get things done right away. So there are going to be multiple sessions. The goals can be added or changed. So if you have a certain thing you want to work on day one, that doesn't mean that has to carry over until we're done. You might find that really after you learn some of the ways you might have to do things, it might not be a goal anymore. Or you might think of something that you didn't think of initially. That can always be added. So we keep working with clients until the client feels like their goals have been met to the fullest extent possible. Once clients are discharged, that does not mean that we'll never see them again. We have a lot of returning clients. Things in life change. It might be maybe they've moved. We get that quite a bit, where somebody moves and now they have they're having some issues in their new environment. Lifestyles change. Maybe you want to do something again that maybe wasn't important the first time. Maybe your vision has changed and now the tools that were working for you before are no longer working for you. So you can always return for services. It's always, I always enjoy seeing clients who have already been through us. I know Dr. Hinson touched on the devices. I just want to go over them in a little bit more detail. I want to say that a lot of people come to us hoping that they can leave with glasses and everything's going to be better. That's just really not the case. The glasses, like Dr. Hinson was saying, are not, in fact, once people learn how to use them, a lot of times they no longer have interest in glasses. One of the things that I really try to do is keep things as the way they used to be as possible for people when they do activities, and also being as cost effective. Dr. Hinson was saying, she used the +8 example where like she might say, Lauren, this person did really well with a +8 magnifier. What is really nice with our establishment is that Dr. Hinson knows that it might not always be a +8. If what we're looking at is larger print, we can maybe back off on some of the magnification. If they do electronic magnification and they can change the contrast, sometimes then they can back off on the magnification. So it's kind of working with each individual, with their goals, with different devices and different powers within a close range of what Dr. Hinson mentioned to figure out what's going to work the best. I try to see what people can do without magnification. That's usually my starting point. So on the screen it says non-optical solutions versus optical solutions. The non-optical solutions are what I'm going to just talk briefly about now. The first one is lighting. A lot of people ask about lighting, and as they should, because lighting is really, really helpful. The right kind of light for people with vision impairments. The type of light that we focus on the most would be task light versus ambient light. Task light is light that's on a gooseneck that you can put right over what you're trying to see. And I'm talking like inches away. Ambient light is light that lights up the room. And yes, you need good ambient light, but that's not going to help you see details. The light that that helps you the most with details is task lighting. And so we spend time talking about the positioning of lighting, the type of lighting, because it's not one size fits all. Some people are very sensitive to light. So it really is very individualized, the type of light that works for different people.
But Susan, if they put a 1,000-watt light bulb in that ambient light, it should be fine, right? Because it's a brighter light, right?
Exactly. People think brighter is better, and that is not the case. For sure. And a lot of times it is combining things, like having a magnifier, but a magnifier with really good task light that works the best for people. Contrast, every time that you can make the contrast better, black on white, white on black, things will pop out more and they will be easier to see. I have on the right-hand corner here some steps. These steps have like a white piece of tape going on the outer edge there for better contrast. But we all know the real world isn't always that nice. I don't know if anybody's ever missed a curb or a step or has fears of that, but we hear you. When people have low vision, they usually have compromised depth perception as well. And so contrast is important for safe walking and mobility, in addition just to making your life easier with seeing things a little bit easier. So the more organized a person is and the less clutter that they have, we're all guilty of this. We're all guilty of it. It's like a never-ending quest, right? Just to get rid of all the stuff that you don't need on a daily basis. But when you have low vision, it really is important to, at least try to get rid of the stuff that you don't need, or at least put it somewhere out of your way so that the places that you use most often, you can find what you need the easiest. And these are all things that when I do home visits, we can just kind of take care of. Not that I'm like emptying out your house, don't worry, but I can give good recommendations. Large print, you can get so many things large print these days: telephones, calendars, keyboards, remote controls. And the nice thing with large print is usually they're high contrast too. So black on white, white on black. These are the things that are going to make your life easier. And a lot of times people can get by without magnification if they have the right kind of large print, high contrast tools. And it's easier. Believe me, every time you don't have to bring in a magnifier, it's much easier and more natural. Font style. So I don't know if you have low vision out there and you've tried reading anything in cursive lately, but cursive writing is almost, I'm just going to say it. I feel like it's almost impossible for a lot of, especially if it's not your own writing. But a lot of recipes maybe that you have, you can pull them out and they're lovingly written in cursive writing, maybe in pencil. So you have just a lot of things going against you right there. The best type of font is not cursive, it's bold and print style. And nowadays a lot of things can be typed. But just the type of style of font is something that we will talk about in low vision services and how to make it as easy as possible for you to read. My two examples, I've got two clocks. One has some fancy letters and one is not as pretty, but it's bold and easy to see. Sometimes it's just easier, even if you can use your vision, sometimes it's just easier to listen. So I've got two examples up here. We absolutely love the Wisconsin Talking Book and Braille Library program. I recommend that to many, many clients, even clients that didn't used to read books, because a lot of people tell me, when I ask them, what do you do during the day? How do you spend your time? Sometimes I have people tell me I nap a lot, I stare into space, I listen to the TV. So why not listen to books? It's basically listening to a really long, interesting story. And it's a great way to pass the time by. And it's free, and it's all done by mail. The other item that I have there, it's just a quick example. It's called the Pen Friend, and it allows you to put a bunch of pre-made labels onto different items throughout your house. All you do with the little pen is you just touch it to the label, and it will read out loud what it is. Where might you want to use that? Well, so many different things. I love the Pen Friend because it's one device that can be used for like 100 different things. You can use it for recipes because each label has I don't even know how much time, but I want to say over an hour. Corey, Luke, does that sound about right? I don't know, it's a long time. You could basically, record, I don't even know. I don't know why anybody would need that much time, but it's available to you. Most people use it for food pantry items. I show people how to use it for their calendar. I really like it for calendar. Phone numbers. What else? Medications. There's so much time on there, you can record all the information, all the instructions and phone numbers and things like that. Tactile, so when I do home visits, I do a lot of putting bump dots on things. Appliance dials are big. That's usually where I put bump dots, but we can also put them on plugs where you plug things in, and keyholes so people can find their keyhole a little bit better. So we do a lot of things with different colored. I try to use high contrast as well. Combinations are key. I touched on that before, but high contrast, large print, sometimes even auditory. This is a watch that probably can do it all. It's got high contrast, it's got bold numbers, and if you can press it and it will actually say the time, even better. Because at night, or if it's hard to see, or if you're having a bad eye day, you could just listen to it. Technology. When I do home visits, if people have a computer, if they're using it, I always will sit down at it and show them how to use the Zoom feature, which is in the accessibility settings of a Windows-based computer. And it's very simple for my clients to use, and most of them just really appreciate it because it's simple and it makes their lives easier. They can see things better. I train them on how to use it just for spot reading. What people tend to do on their own is they try to blow things up and make things big all of the time, and that's not always functional. So by using the zoom feature kind of the way that I like to train people, it can be a very functional, efficient way to look at the computer. I know we don't have a lot of time, but optical devices, I mean, we can be here for a long time talking about optical devices. I think, and Dr. Hinson went into some of it. I think the important takeaway is that optical devices, there's a lot of them. If you go online, it can be extremely overwhelming. It's hard to know what power you want, even with a handheld. It can be hard to know what power is appropriate because there's a lot of different powers if you go online. There are devices that are handheld. There are devices in the form of glasses. There are devices for distance viewing, devices for near reading. There are devices for that intermediate distance, which is like if you kind of hold your hands out, like looking at the computer. Advantages and disadvantages to every single one. They are not all appropriate for every single person. And that's why when you go through services, we're not even going to talk about the ones that really are not appropriate. Some of them can be very technical. Some of our electronic devices can be very, they have like a lot of bells and whistles and a lot of controls that you have to press and remember. And a lot of our clients don't want that. They want simple. Positioning and setup are important. So we're not going to just hand you a device and send you on your merrily little way. You have to understand the proper uses for it, and also, if lighting needs to be brought in. Sometimes, with a lot of our clients, one eye is better than the other. And so a lot of times we want them to cover up the worse eye. So it's like a whole setup. Even with glasses, you kind of think glasses would be portable. Magnification glasses are not very portable. Usually people need a spot in their home where they have the light the right way, where they use the glasses. If they take the glasses and look at a menu in a restaurant, chances are they're not going to be nearly as successful because the lighting is dim and poor. So these are all things that we do in low vision services, and it's trial and error. What works for one person, even with the same eye disease, and even when Dr. Hinson recommends the same power, might not work. So we also have to consider if there's any hand tremors or any, if there's any fatigue with holding something a certain way. So positioning and setup are really important, and that's why, one of the many reasons why it can take multiple visits with OT, occupational therapy, to figure out what's going to work. The other part of this is motivation, so the client has to be motivated on their end to do it this way. And the more honest the client is with me, the better off. Because if I show them a certain way that something really has to be done, and the person says to me, I would never do that, you're not hurting my feelings. You're actually helping all of us out. Because, well, now I know, and we can try something different. So honesty is great.
When I'm working with clients, two things. Motivation, Lauren called it. I call it ability. The magnifier allows you are able to read newspaper-sized print with this magnifier. But the second thing you have to be successful with magnification is willingness. Are you willing to hold it at the proper distance? Are you willing to bring the light in? Are you willing to modify where your furniture is sitting in your living room to be able to get the best out of your vision? Motivation, willingness, that is key. You are going to have to do things differently than you've done them before to be successful with any kind of, and we kind of lump it all into magnification, but really what we're talking about is all of the devices and the tools and the techniques. It isn't just necessarily that Sherlock Holmes magnifier, but willingness is huge. You have to be willing to do things a new way.
Yeah, exactly. Even something like for TV, usually the easiest solution is to sit close. I mean, I recommend a smaller TV and just sitting right in front of it, rather than a bigger TV and sitting further away. But a lot of people, they just don't want to even move their chair half as close. They've got it set up and that's it. And it's not that, that's fine.
I get sassy with my patients, Is it that you can't
or you won't? Yeah, yeah. And then you also have the people who read with the newspaper on the table, and it's really, I can try, other people can try that are with them, but the person has to be willing to, want to fold up the newspaper and have it propped up. So, it's just sometimes it's things like that if the motivation isn't there to even do simple changes, then it's going to be much harder to be successful with some of our recommendations. Electronic magnification, this is what Dr. Hinson was talking about before, where you have the most control. These are machines. They come in all different sizes and shapes. Some of them are portable. Some of them are very, very heavy. Different purposes, but they do allow you the most control. I think the biggest disadvantage is the price. They tend to be the more pricey devices. The big ones, they can range anywhere from you can get them used. We do sell used ones for about $1,500, and then if you get new, they're going to be $3,000 to $4,000, unfortunately. But there is a range within there.
I've been doing this a long time. Yeah, I was kind of stuck in that $2,500 mode. I didn't.
Yeah,
I've gone up.
Yeah. Electronic wearables. This is another option. It's kind of taking that electronic device and it's putting it over your head. And what you see, it basically is taking like a phone, like a cell phone, and putting it right smack over your eyes with a contraption where it attaches to your head. But these can be really helpful for some people. It's definitely, I would consider these to be a little bit more in the techie area. So somebody would probably have to be pretty good with technology, I think, for the most part, to be really successful. There's maybe a couple that are a little bit easier, but some of them can be a little bit gadgety. Referrals and resources. So with all the techie stuff, if it's too technical for me, I am not a technical person, then I'm going to refer to Corey or Luke, who are here today, and they're going to be talking after me. We also have mobility, so if somebody needs specialty training in the area of mobility, walking safely, we can refer to that. I do want to talk, before we finish, just very briefly about the emotional component, because we do also have a social worker. A lot of people that we see are struggling with vision loss, as it makes sense. There's a whole grieving process that can come with new vision loss. And even if you've had vision loss for many years, maybe you've had a new set of vision loss, and now things that you were kind of getting used to are hard. And so I want to let you know I have tissues in my office, and people do get emotional, and it's all part of it. We meet people where they are. Sometimes people aren't quite ready to make some of the recommendations emotionally, but they hear us. And so they will come back, hopefully, maybe when they're at a better place and more likely to make some of the changes. Sometimes they just need to talk to somebody to help them through the process, so we can refer for that. We also have support groups, which we've tried changing that word support, because a lot of people were thinking that it's a group of people saying, woe is me. That's not the case. It's really information giving and gathering. There's a lot to be learned from other people who have vision loss, and sometimes it's just nice to know you're not alone. I learn all the time from my clients. One of my favorite task lights, I learned from doing a home visit. Somebody had this amazing light, and I talked to the person who runs the store, and now our store sells it. So, we're all, every day, the people in this industry are learning from other people, and so that's why I think these support groups are so valuable. There's just a lot of value in talking. They are run by a facilitator, but that's so that everybody that wants to get a turn to talk can talk, and it keeps things moving and keeps things educational.
It's basically networking. So if you're retired, if you've been there, done that, it's just networking. Lauren and I can talk till we're blue in the face, but we're not experiencing what you're experiencing. And sometimes like Lauren said, to know that you're not alone in this, and to sit next to somebody who says, oh, this is what I did in that situation. It really, if I could, I would make all of my patients participate in at least one group session, because you just don't know what you don't know. And until you sit next to somebody and talk with them about it, it can be cathartic, it's just a good thing. So I would strongly encourage you, I don't care where it is, but to maybe get together with some other people, even if it's just for coffee, who have experienced a vision loss. It's really very helpful. The fact that you're here is a good thing.
Yeah.
Participating in these types of meetings is helpful. Again, just to know that you're not alone in this.
Yep. And I know we're low on time, but I just want to mention one more thing, and that's with the caregiver support or the spouse support or friend support. Low vision can be confusing because, your loved one might be able to pick something small like a pill off the floor, and then they'll look at you in the face and say, I know you're there, but I can't see your features. Or they might be reading and they'll say something like, I hear this all the time. They'll say, I see words, but I can't read them. And what does that mean? It's confusing. Low vision doesn't have a look to it. So just sometimes understanding, so that's why the point I'm trying to make is it's good to have your loved ones join you through some of these, even like the support sessions, come to the low vision sessions, because a lot of it is just educating, like trying to help your loved ones understand, because I know that's a big source of frustration for a lot of our clients is they don't feel understood. And so we hear you, we understand, and so we try, one of the things we do is try to get your surrounding people to understand a little bit more what you're going through. I don't know how much, do we have time for questions and comments?
About 10 minutes.
Perfect, okay. Yes, go ahead.
I'm a newbie at Low Vision.
Okay.
I didn't want to be here, but this friend here brought me.
Yay, friend. Good for your friend.
And I said, I need to be here. So if I'm interested in everything that you're talking about, do I need a referral from my primary doctor? How do I begin to see you?
Good question. Yes. The question is, if you would like to go through low vision services, really, how do you go about doing it? Do you need a direct referral from the doctor? Anybody can refer to Vision Forward. So it could be you, it could be a friend. It doesn't have to be a doctor, but we do require an updated
eye exam. We need to make sure that everything that can be done medically has been done. So you can't get into our door if you haven't had an eye exam with a dilation within the last 6 months. So that has to be current. Your dilated eye exam has to be current.
Yeah, and it's okay to make the referral first.
Yep.
So you don't worry about having everything set up before you call. It really just take one call, and we have a wonderful person who will talk you through the process, everything you need.
Okay, I can help with questions and repeat them if anyone else has a question for Dr. Hinson or Lauren. Yes.
I'm just wondering if you have a new eye exam and things are worse than they were maybe several years ago when you came, then that new eye exam, then you kind of start over with some of the things you talked about, right?
Yes.
Okay, so her question is she's gotten a new eye exam. What happens if that diagnosis is worse than the exam from the past? Do we start over with the results of the new exam?
Absolutely.
Yep. We just had a gal this week, in fact. Lauren, I think you saw her. 2016 is when we saw her last. We saw her in 2016. Her vision has changed. And even if the vision hasn't necessarily changed, but the goal has changed, technology is constantly changing. So now we have all this new fabulous technology.
Yep.
How do I start using some of this stuff that my kids and my grandkids are showing me, but I have a vision loss? How do I start using this stuff? So even if it's not a functional change, it's not you're seeing bigger letters on the eye chart, but there's a it's not an acuity change, but it's a functional change. Either way, we are happy to see you again if things are just not going the way they used to.
Yes, and I do also want to mention that if you've been here before and it's maybe goals that have changed or a move, Dr. Hinson will most likely do a direct referral to me, so you don't always have to see Dr. Hinson again. Sometimes I have done many times where I've just gone straight out to the person's home. So I started off the second time they came with a home visit instead of them having to come to the clinic. So,
Any other questions?
really good questions.
Yes.
Just had my eyes exam and got the progressive lenses, and I'm thinking, well, I don't need them anymore, so I'm going to see my doctor again in November, and he's going to dilate my eyes. So I'm wondering about glasses. Should I be doing different glasses?
Okay, so she has progressive lenses. She's going to see the doctor again in November, and she's wondering, what about your glasses?
So I get the question. I understand the question. I know exactly what you're talking about. The no-line invisible bifocal. Should I continue with that? Most likely, continuing with that no-line invisible bifocal for your day-to-day pair of glasses is going to be definitely recommended. But from a vision rehabilitation perspective, I hate that product because inherent in an invisible bifocal, there's a blur zone. You all may not know how those work. The top half of the lens is your distance vision, driving, TV watching. Then there's a very narrow, invisible ladder of powers, one for 5 feet, one for 3 feet, one for 2 feet. But it's no wider than my pinky, is that portion of the lens where you can see things at those different distances, and then it gets wide again at the bottom. But it used to be a bifocal with the line, and they buff out the line. Everywhere they buffed out the line is a blur zone. So inherent in that lens design is blurry vision. So if I want you to maximize your vision, I want to take that progressive lens off your face, and I want you to have a dedicated pair of glasses just for reading. So no, you're not going to throw away that invisible bifocal because you're still going to need it for your walking around stuff, but having maybe a dedicated pair of glasses for reading might be a much better option.
All right. Any other questions? Yes.
I want to clarify that the visit, the OTR, is usually covered by insurance. It's just the devices that you usually have to pay for.
Okay, she wants clarification about what is covered by insurance, the exam as opposed to the devices.
No. I think it's like, let's just say devices not covered. Because
some commercial insurances might have a little bit that you can apply towards it, but that's
seen it.
few and far between, very few and far
I've been
between.
doing this for 15 years, so.
That's the unfortunate, your insurance will pay for crutches. Your insurance will pay for the Band-Aids that you need if you have a wound, but they're not going to pay for magnifiers. I don't get it. I don't agree with it, but that's the reality of life. Yes, the time, the office visit, that'll be covered by your insurance. Whatever if you've met your deductible, your copay, you still might see fees that come out of that, depending upon where you're at in your cycle of your deductible. But any devices that are recommended, no.
But is yours covered?
There's one portion of the low vision assessment that's not covered, and it's the same thing that's not covered when you go to see your eye doctor. That's the refraction. That's Medicare considers that a non-covered. Medicare and commercial insurances consider the refraction just determination of your eyeglass prescription, so they do not cover that. So that would be a fee that you would pay in addition to whatever your 20% copay is.
Thank you.
All right, we have 2 more minutes if anyone else has a question. Yes, in the back.
I'd just like to say, that I got to tell people that don't be afraid to ask questions, because you do want to try to get ahead of it before it gets started on you. So you can try to catch it before it get like this. See, like my mom used to warn me when she was living. She always said, baby, go check your eyes. And my mom had glaucoma. She died when she got blinded. and she just recently died. And she kept telling me to go and get my eyes checked, but out the hard-headed one.
So the number one, I thank you for sharing that. The number one
Just briefly, in case anyone didn't hear what he said, some wonderful words of wisdom. Ask questions. So I would say that's true today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask any of us on the Vision Forward team. If we don't know the answer, we'll connect you with someone who does. And after this, you may be laying in bed tonight, talking to a friend, thinking about the day, and realizing that there was something that you wanted to ask and didn't have the opportunity to do that.
Right.
Call Vision Forward, connect with any of us again, and we will be happy to find an answer to your question. So Dr. Hinson.
No, just very briefly. So the two things, glaucoma, use your drops, use your drops, use your drops. Don't skimp on them. Make that a priority. Macular degeneration, if you have one of those grids, get it out, front and center, check it every day. Dry macular degeneration can convert to wet, and the purpose of that grid is to help you see those changes. Patients coming in all the time, yeah, I have a grid, where is it? I don't know. You need, if you have macular degeneration, you need to be checking that grid. That's part of your your medical follow-up. If you have glaucoma, those are macular degeneration is the number one diagnosis that we see, followed by glaucoma. Use your grid, take your drops.